Good job, Rajiv.
All right. Well, we're excited to be here, and I want to start this discussion with an exorcism, because it's very important that you guys both work at great companies, and I know you're going to want to talk about it throughout the panel, but we're going to exorcise that demon for the first minute or so. So please give us, exorcise, not exercise, Todd. Don't be afraid.
Tell us, what is Salesforce?
So tell us who you are, what you do, and why you're so amazing, or your company's so amazing, and we'll get all that out of the way.
So Salesforce is the #1 CRM, and we offer what's called the Customer Success Platform. I own part of our Service Cloud business, which is the #1 product for running a customer engagement center, and TalkDesk is a great partner of ours. I spend a lot of time doing care and feeding of customers and responding to questions they have, needs they have, and trying to build that back into the product.
Great.
Cool. I'm the CEO of a company called TaskUs. You may not have heard of us, certainly not as popular as Salesforce, but we're getting there. We provide back office and customer service outsourcing to a lot of the people in this room, specialize in rapidly expanding businesses, generally people who are outsourcing for the first time. We've got just over 5,200 people in our offices in the Philippines, El Salvador, and San Antonio, Texas.
Great. I want to start us off with a little quote.
Okay.
Paint a perfect picture, bring to life a vision in one's mind, the beautiful ones. Always smash the picture, always, every time. It's the Prince song, Beautiful Ones, my tribute in purple. It also describes my relationship with Apple, Unrequited Love. They have to be the least customer-centric company out there. I pulled up a Harvard Business Review study from 1985 that talked about your customers. Is this shit actually new? Like, what are we doing here? Like, customer centricity, what's actually different? What's rising now?
So I think you're right. I mean, the customer is always right mentality goes back probably as long as people have had customers. I think what's different today is that customers have more of a voice than they have ever had before. And so if you look at kind of the mobile first, social media, millennial generation, the one thing that they've got that nobody had even 10, 15 years ago is the ability to publicize their discontent. And so people who have got lots of Instagram followers, Twitter followers, Snapchat followers are empowered because now having a bad reputation as a business has a deep consequence because someone can get up and yell from the rooftops how dissatisfied they are with you. So I think that has a really big impact. If we're talking, I mean, people say, oh, we're customer-centric because we really care about our customers. I actually think, that's probably somewhat true, but a huge thing is fear. People are afraid of the consequences of not handling their customers' problems before they spiral out of control.
Yeah. I think the most exciting thing in the last 10 years that was new, and it's actually in Emmanuel's world, it's the world of selling, is something called the challenger customer. And it's the idea that the customer's not always right.
Yep.
I service 1,500 companies like yours that I talk to a year.
Yep.
I actually see patterns that you don't. Mm-hmm. So I have something to bring, and I'm allowed to be firm and clear about that. I think the thing that's changing right now that I'm hearing, talking to customers, and not just awesome startups,
Yep.
but some big companies too, are saying, is our org chart wrong? Like, should we be tearing up the org chart? This idea of a sales department and a service department and marketing, and they don't even see each other at lunch? Like, is that wrong? Is that bad? So I'm hearing people start to challenge real structural and economic things about the company's shape. That's new.
Great. Well, we'll jump into that in a second. So I like the idea of it's not really that businesses are changing their approach and that's so dramatically different. They're changing because they have to. The customers are making them. That's actually a really good sentiment because otherwise we would have to send everybody home, right? So we're off to a good start. I think one of the things that we sometimes get to is B2B versus B2C or startups versus enterprises. And so many times when we talk about the disruption, we're really talking about a change in both the technology delivery and how it interacts with the customer. Bryce, you guys, and I'm going to let you quote Uber one time, and that's it. Otherwise, you're doing shots in the back for every other time of Uber or Airbnb reference. But so can you talk a little bit about, because you serve some of these companies, what does that mean, this notion of changing the delivery of technology and coupling that with a different approach to the customer?
Yeah, so I think, people, Gotti's presentation earlier was really interesting because you kind of see when different channels are the best channels to connect with your customers in. And I think the best channel to connect with your customer is the channel where there is no human-to-human connection. And the reason for that is generally if you're on the phone with a customer or even if you're exchanging a human-to-human email or chat, it means that something has gone wrong with your product. And all those problems are what keep me in business. But as a customer, what I prefer is automated updates, letting me know what's going on, where my package is, where my food is, where my car is. And so, Uber's a great example of this because everybody uses the application and you can see exactly where your car is. And so you don't, freak out if it's like, okay, it said it was coming in 3 minutes. Now it's been 5 minutes. Where's my car? Let me email customer support because you can see where your car is on the application. I mean, something that wasn't pioneered by Uber. I mean, if you look back 10, 15 years ago, FedEx and UPS came up with this when they kept you updated about where your package was along the way so that if your package turned out to be a day late, you weren't on the phone yelling at the UPS customer service agents. You understood that there was a delay in Kansas, and because of a winter storm, the package was going to be late. So I think the customer journey starts long before you start actually talking to your customer. The customer journey starts when they first show up on your website or inside your mobile application, and there's an incredible opportunity, I think, using technology and product design to keep your customer updated and engaged with your product without ever needing to interact with a human being.
So I think this is one category of companies that have a product that lets them re-engineer how the touch points with the customer work, right? But let's move to the other extreme for a second. And Todd started to hint at this. There's a lot of companies here who are not going to reinvent their industry with their business model. Their business model is there. Maybe they're incrementally changing it. Maybe they want to get to long-term change. But they still are afraid of customers having a bad experience with them. They still need to adjust to a market that says we need to treat customers better than we did a decade or two ago.
Yeah.
Todd, you started on this with this org chart discussion of customers not being engineered. What are some of the things those companies can do to actually be more customer-centric?
Yeah, so the number one thing, and again, it's not fancy technology, is actually just putting someone in place with that responsibility and giving them a direct line to the CEO. We see companies that are in the two disruptive examples you gave where there's a customer experience leader and that person reports to the CEO and has an equal voice to engineering, to sales, to service. That's one simple thing. On the other end, because everything has radios and sensors now, your dream of, I just don't want anything to ever come up, is like the bar for doing that, whether that's on one platform or another, the bar to be able to do that is way lower. That's more and more normal people can now say, there's an issue with your phone, and we sent a patch, and the next time you power up your phone, the new patch will be applied. They detected an issue. They've identified the fix. They, by the way, is a bunch of algorithms.
Yeah.
They sent the fix. The fix happened. You didn't even know you were about to have a problem. That's sort of that's the nirvana. Maybe not for a place that does pedicures, but for anyone with a product, anyone who does something that gets installed. That self-healing system. That is get rid of customer service. I mean, I don't want to hurt your business,
please.
But that's the ideal for the customer. Your customer doesn't want to talk to you, I think.
Bryce, do you agree with that? Does the customer ever want to talk to you?
Yeah, the customer does want to talk to you when things are highly emotional, and I think the customer does want to interact with you when things do go wrong. But I agree that the ideal interaction, it's like what Bezos said. It's like, why do we need customer service? It's evidence that we failed in terms of building our product. And I think, I guess where I disagree is I think that's true, but I don't think it should be looked at as failure. I think there is an opportunity at that point to learn from your customer. If you're going to engage with them, what can you be learning from the customer to educate the product and inform the decisions that you're going to make about the roadmap for what your business is going to look like in the next 10 months.
Yeah, I have customers that disagree with me too.
Yeah.
They agree with you. The cool thing going on, we saw a little bit of it as what we're going to be seeing later this year is, and the example I'll use, I can't say their name just yet, but they do online tax software. You've probably heard of them. And they they found that when they do live video support,
Yeah.
where you can see a person's face, it turns out that people are really tense about tax. It's a really upsetting time of year. Everything feels bad, and they found that they took, where they're getting 3-star ratings out of 5 on voice, they're getting 5s on video. And it's not a technology trick, it's a psychology trick.
Yeah.
And it's, if I can see your face and you can look at me and say, this happens to a lot of people, here's how you approach it, it's okay. It's an amazing shift in the ability to provide an emotional service to the customer.
Yeah.
I think that's bizarre. I think that's awesome that we're providing emotional services now as part of customer support. But that customer is yours forever.
Yeah.
So this is great. I want you to provide me some emotional service, all right? So I'm a customer of banks, and many of us are. Hopefully all of us are.
Yeah.
So I'm a customer of Citibank. One thing that's great about not being at a company is you can name names. I'm a customer of Citibank Gold, for 10 years. And I decide I'm in a new entrepreneurial venture. I need to open a business banking account. You actually have to go into the branch to do that. So I walk into the branch, and there seems to be nobody waiting. There's one person ahead of me. And I'm there, that's great, I got plenty of time. 45 minutes later, I'm just sitting there, right? So I'm basically like, fuck this, right?
Yes.
So on to the next one. So then I walk down the street. I'm in New York. This is great. It's all my customers. I walk into TD Ameritrade. True story. TD Ameritrade has been my investment bank for the last decade. I walk in. There's one person. She greets me very nicely. I tell her what I'm there. She says, just wait there. We'll be with you in just a second. 40 minutes later, right? And then I finally get a seat, and I'm like, hey, here's my paperwork. And they're like, actually, our internet is blocked. We can't see any of those sites, so can you print it out for us? I'm like, I got to go. So then I walk into finally some private banking thing from Chase, open it very successfully. They give me a great level of service, but now that guy's calling me all the time, right, because he wants to really serve me. So am I the asshole, or could they have done something better? Like, how should a large incumbent industry design around those kinds of scenarios, where those two banks have literally probably lost and siphoning off private business because of an interaction unrelated to my current track of being a customer with them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just say I think that customer expectations have changed dramatically as a result of on-demand. I mean, if you think about it, I remember when we first started TaskUs, and this was 7 years ago, we had the same experience, and I wasn't that upset about waiting in the bank for 45 minutes. Today, I would be furious. Today, 45 minutes is an absolute eternity. I would never wait that long for that type of service. And I think it's because I'm used to being able to pull up my smartphone and get anything that I want in 5 minutes. So the message there is that incumbent industries who have incumbent processes have to quickly move to re-engineer them to keep pace with the expectations of today's customers.
Yeah, I think that they could have given you ways to navigate yourself to the right place. The trick we're seeing a lot of customers do is put customers in charge of servicing each other with a community or a portal or whatever you want to call it. And it turns out that a third of the advice that you see with, it's like a Facebook feed like interaction on a page of your website between customers, a third of what they're saying is, here's how to get the best service from this company. And so they would say, so Narinder, right, there are hacks that do the, Narinder, do not walk into a physical branch. You will store up a story for your children. Don't do it. Terrible idea. Go here, call this number, and I'm not kidding, fax them these printed out pages. That's your best way. And so how to hack the interface between the company that has outgrown itself. The other thing is that I think I started in IT and writing SQL, and I left that behind quickly. But in IT, we thought, we need a phone support system, so we better build one of those. Okay, that's done. Now we need to add chat. Okay, that's done. It's like, you should start assuming that every single system is going to be turning over once or twice a year, and that's normal. And that's a very different way of thinking about it, and I see a lot of customers adjusting to that. And their customers kicking them in the butt.
Yeah.
They're like, nope, that's the bar. Sorry.
Totally.
Sticking a little bit with large companies for one more second. How should they actually talk to their customers physically, and who should? Should it be just a department? Like, we're talking large institutions now, right? Like, I'm not going to email the CEO of Citibank, right? I might, but it's probably not going to be that effective. I don't expect an interaction in that model. Right. How should these companies be engineering the future of just that first level of engagement with those customers?
Yeah, so we've seen a number of really interesting things from our customers. Recently, we had a customer, and I'm not advocating this, but I think it's an interesting approach, set up a phone number for all of their customers to call that a human being would answer on the other side of the phone and be able to then navigate them through the organization. So to Todd's point, if you've got customers that are just looking for what's the right phone number to call for this particular issue, they don't want to sit in an IVR navigating themselves. I mean, as you do that, the emotions are just rising and rising and rising. This has created for this customer the ability to instantly connect with a human being, have that human being understand your needs, and get you to the right person. Now, you've got a number of issues there. I mean, it's more expensive. You've got a transfer issue, but it's helpful. With technology, you can do something similar where we're seeing some customers deploy click-to-call buttons where within the workflow, you can click on a button, I'm experiencing this issue, and actually have the company call you back. And so I think there's a number of ways to do this. You can kind of do the white glove concierge approach, or you can use technology to inform a call where I'm calling you and I already know what your issue is.
Yeah.
To set it up for me.
Yeah.
So you brought this up, Bryce, you hinted at this, is let's switch from the large companies. Actually, this can apply in both cases. Getting 100% of customers to love you would be incredibly expensive, like probably prohibitively so, right? And if you're a startup today, yesterday was growth, now it's profitability, you've got to somehow balance that. What's the right way to think about the right level of investments that you're making in customers?
So Todd, I'd be interested to hear what your customers are doing on segmenting out their customers.
I would actually say it's different based on where the company is in its life cycle.
Sure.
So you say I service high growth, upstart, rip the rug out from under them.
Yeah.
Disruptive companies. I was in London on Thursday and Friday, and Dublin before that last week, and there is a whole wave of new entrants to retail banking, like the most regulated, stiffest, least innovative place in the world. Well, in London, they are onshoring support, and it's because what is their product differentiator? The bank I was talking to has not launched yet, and they said, we have a 100-kilometer accent rule, meaning we're going to detect where you're calling from. You're going to get answered by someone with an accent that could be within 100 kilometers of where you're calling from. Now, I don't know how they're going to do that, but they say, what is my product differentiator? I'm a bank. It's rates. You can't differentiate that. Everyone has an app. That's gone. I can deposit via photo. The product innovation is now in the service, and they're saying, India got pretty expensive anyway. I'm going to onshore and do this. And that is a contract, and it's similar to what First Republic does in the U.S., where it's sort of like you're coming to us for a higher level of service, and you're going to get a person first.
Yeah.
And now, do you do everything in the world to make them qualify out on the community, in your app, with help topics, with text? Sure, but they market the guarantee. It'll be someone that could be down the street will take your call, and it's massively, massively impactful on the disruption.
Yeah, so what's fascinating to me is there seems to be this cycle where companies start, and I cannot tell you the number of startups that I've called on, and I go into their office, and basically it's like, get out. We will never outsource support ever. We are different. We're going to scale this city by city. We're going to have Stanford graduates answering emails at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then you just start the clock. And I guarantee every time, within 12 months, they call back and say, well, can we look at those rates? And what would a pilot look like? And the reason is because it isn't scalable, right? And so what ends up happening is then these companies, and it's happening more and more recently because of the funding environment, get serious about outsourcing some part or all of their support or back office services in order to scale the operation. And so we really feel like there's a healthy mix of onshore versus offshore, in-house versus outsourced, that can accomplish a really good CSAT, NPS, protect the brand, but also do it in a way that's economically viable. But then you have this, which I think is fascinating, at the other end of the spectrum, old companies that have been around for a long time, then doing the exact opposite and saying, okay, well, now we're going to insource and we're going to spend even more money, and that's going to be our competitive differentiator. So in a way, I think it's just sort of a healthy cycle. To go back to one of the questions I think Narinder was getting at here, I think the other question is, what level of support do you provide for different customers? And so we have a very sort of, in San Francisco, startups, we like flat organizations. We like to treat all of our customers the same. But the truth is, your customers are not all created equal, right? The person who comes on and is spending tens of thousands of dollars buying clothes on your e-commerce app is not the same as the customer who comes one time and buys the $29.99 sale item. And those people should be treated differently. And so, most of our customers, when they first come to task us, they haven't really done good customer segmentation. And in our opinion, that's also not a sustainable model. You have to look at your customer segments by how much money they're spending, what geography they're in. There's all sorts of different ways to segment a customer and make some really tough decisions about, are we going to service this customer on the phone? Are we going to send them to an FAQ? Before you even go to outsource or talking about offshore, really making that decision about how you're going to treat different lines of customers is a good first step, I think.
So Bryce, I think one of the things that you were hinting at in Todd's comments as well is that with startups, you can create a culture that's customer-centric, and it lets you outsource more easily from a cultural perspective, right? Because they're going to, from day one, they're born with that. Whereas these companies that are moving things back in are doing it exactly because they don't have the culture to support this extended reach.
Yes.
Right? So thinking about it from that perspective, what are one or two positions that if you were looking at either a startup or an enterprise company, pick your choice, you'd say they better have somebody in role X with these responsibilities, because without that, they're not going to make the transition from being the run-of-the-mill to exceptional from a customer perspective.
Sure.
What would either one of you guys, both of you?
I think the one that gets skipped early on and then you get a black eye or 6 and you change it is someone in charge of onboarding new customers. Mm-hmm. The service experience starts with my purchase, and like the clock starts ticking. First time I saw TalkDesk, they showed me spinning up, toll-free numbers in 9 countries. And they said, no, literally, like you're going to hit the buy button, you suddenly have numbers in 9 countries you can be routing in. I was like, you mean now? Oh man, I'm going to slaughter marketing. This is going to be awesome. They're going to be so mad because your ability to have that great, no, I'm up right away. So I think customer onboarding is huge, and that's a technology example, but there needs to be a human who's accountable. And then the other thing, we talked about it earlier today, is that there's this new in vogue thing with the funding environment, which is, I'm supposed to retain customers? Attrition is a metric that matters, and I think a customer retention and customer onboarding and customer retention, I think they should be separate, and I think they get skipped early on because people say, well, we don't have 1 million customers yet, I'll wait. And to your point, if you don't have that person pushing on the design of the company, the design of the culture early, and it could be the CEO's part-time hat. You did that a little bit. But it needs to be there, and it needs to be explicit.
Yeah. So I'd say one position. We hear people talk a lot about the chief customer officer building a customer-obsessed business. And at TaskUs, we really are building a employee or teammate-obsessed business. And the reason for that is we believe that by investing heavily in the people who are talking to your customers, we create this virtuous cycle where we can attract really cool companies that want service from like a very differentiated pool of agents. And then those cool customers attract better agents, and you kind of create this really virtuous self-reinforcing cycle. And so with that, the one ask that I have of all of our customers, and I still have not seen it done, is a tools product officer. And what I mean by that is when people are building product or they're investing their technology resources, particularly in startups, all of that stuff is going to the app that touches the customer. Almost nothing is invested in the tools that are used in the call center environment to support those customers. And so for those of you guys who have had the pleasure of going into a call center and looking at an agent's screen, you'll see the same thing. It's like 9 different tabs, right? They're jumping from one tab to the next, looking for information in Salesforce. Okay, pulling up Zendesk. Okay, going over here. They've got Notepad up because you haven't enabled macros. They're copying and pasting things, and so you get on the phone with a support representative, and very often they'll put you on hold, or there'll be a pause, and I think people assume, oh, this person's not doing their job, they're lazy, they're spacing out. The truth is, they're like just frantically in the background trying to pull together all this information because nobody has prioritized the agent experience. And so if I could invent a position, it would be like the tools product officer. I don't know what it would be called. Somebody could probably come up with a better name, but someone who is just focused on going in, looking at what the agent experience is like, and refining that using technology in the same way that we spend so much time looking at the customer experience and refining that.
There was a slide up earlier in the day that showed this kind of shattered glass of companies and vendors that are trying to serve various aspects of interacting with your customer. If you're one of those companies, right, your talk desk, you're a little earlier, you're a little later, in your heart of hearts, a customer simply choosing to use your product isn't enough for them to become customer-centric. Mm-hmm. There's all these things that have to happen around it. Given that, what advice would you have to the vendors in the room who are selling to the companies that you guys have sold to successfully on how to get customers to think about things the right way so they can actually have huge ROI with the technologies or services that you're offering?
Yeah, I think.
And you have 30 seconds each. Timers.
I think I'm not going to look at the timer. I think
nobody else has. It's all good.
I think the answer. That's why we're 40 minutes late. I think the answer is to partner up. Partner up early, figure out what the patterns are of problems that your customers are having, and partner up with other vendors. If you can bring, it doesn't need to be formally packaged or all integrated. It's just an idea of here's how to make this flip in your business. Salesforce obviously started the App Exchange very early on, and it's because we want people to partner up and we want everyone to be doing part of the work. That's the key, is to connect with other vendors to solve common problems for the customer. It's too many vendors for anyone with a reasonable life to deal with.
Very practical advice. Bryce?
Yeah, just quickly, I'd say decide who your customer is. And by that, I don't mean the type of company, I mean who in the company you're selling to. I love the Bloomberg example, and Bloomberg built this great terminal, and he decided, I'm not going to sell to the CIO, I'm not going to sell to the CFO, I'm going to sell to the trader. I'm going to build a tool that the traders love so much that they go to their CIO and CFO and say, if you don't get this, I'm not going to be able to do my job, right? And he was super clear about who he was selling to, and he built an incredible business. Obviously, it's a little bit older, but I think deciding who inside the organization is our champion early on, that helps inform the product design.
Couldn't agree more.
Oh, we're over. Yeah.
Couldn't agree more for folks who are looking to kind of engage with folks. We found that again and again. Thank you guys so much. We didn't get to talk about Bryce throwing parties as an 18-year-old. We didn't get to talk about the ethics of social marketing and social capital versus purchasing. But if you find these guys afterwards, they're glad to help you with it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Narinder.
Thanks.